In my last video I explained my vision for the structure of the game. Here I'll explain my vision for its content. You see, I'm kind of torn between two ideas for what I want the game to be. On the one hand, if the game garners enough attention from outside the fandom the way Fighting is Magic did, Hasbro might decide to slap a cease and desist order on it. And really the only defense against that is to make the game a parody. And a parody, by definition, mocks the My Little Pony franchise. On the other hand, I can't quite shake the feeling that A, an epic adventure game like this is exactly what the My Little Pony franchise needs, B, I can make the game technically non-violent, which is a major draw for Hasbro and parents, and so, C, Hasbro might actually someday give me permission to make the game if I do it as a serious work and ask them through the proper channels. But Hasbro won't give me permission to do a game that pokes fun of their franchise, but they'll probably cease and desist me if the game doesn't poke fun of their franchise. It's a catch-22. I mean, you can't both make fun of it and have a serious work that they'd accept, can you? Once again, I think you can. Here's what I'm imagining. There's a big light switch on the lower left-hand corner of the game with two positions, Polite and Parody. Polite mode contains cutscenes and dialogue that would be something close to what Hasbro might make themselves and would probably approve of, while Parody mode contains passive-aggressive, suggestive, and all-around mocking dialogue that would quickly get Hasbro's attorneys laughed out of court and fined for filing a frivolous lawsuit. The game either switches between Parody and Polite mode automatically, or the user can do so at any time. To give an example of how this would work, imagine the following cutscene. Twilight is gathering her friends together so that the elements of harmony can be complete. Yeah, I know they were returned to the Tree of Harmony at the start of Season 4. I have ideas for getting around that. So Twilight goes to Applejack's farm to get her, and she comes into Applejack's farm out of the pouring rain to find her and Big Mac sulking over a pile of wooden baskets. Twilight doesn't know why they're so sad and asks them about it, and Applejack explains, the wood in the baskets is going to absorb moisture from the rain, deform, and the baskets are going to tear themselves apart. Since her family wasn't expecting it to rain that week, they left the baskets outside overnight so that they'd be able to harvest apples in the morning. However, now that the storm has hit, the baskets will be ruined, they'll have nothing to harvest with, there will be no harvest, there will be no income, and they will lose the farm. At that point in the conversation, Apple Bloom walks inside, and yes, she's wearing the pink rain cape from Ciansar's BronyCon print, and she says the baskets can be easily fixed by taking them apart, letting the wood dry, and then putting them back together again. She begins taking baskets apart. Applejack joins Twilight, and then the cutscene is over and the player can control Twilight again. If the player walks over to Big Mac and speaks with him, Twilight asks if any baskets made it at all. He lifts up a corner of his raincoat and shows only one dry basket hidden underneath him. Twilight sadly notes that it was the only one that made it, and Big Mac gives a solemn, "Yup." If you keep talking to Big Mac, Twilight will express her surprise that a family's business can be so completely wrecked by just one freak storm, to which his only response is a sad, "Yup." And once we run out of things to make Big Mac say, Apple Bloom will just tell you that Big Mac isn't too talkative when he's sad. All of that was Polite mode. The same scene in Parody mode would go something like this. Twilight steps into the barn, and while Big Mac has a very sour look on his face, Applejack is smiling and declares that she's pleased as punch that there's a freak storm, because now she can wreck something and blame it on the storm and collect on the insurance. At exactly that moment, Apple Bloom steps in and Applejack tells her to start wrecking baskets, which she does while gleefully shouting, "Destroy! Destroy! Destroy!" Really, you can't have enough shoutouts to Friendship is Witchcraft. You can't. After Applejack joins your party, if you talk to Big Mac, Twilight asks him whether any of her magical experiments with her alicorn powers were having any side effects he was aware of. He lifts up his raincoat, and under his coat are hidden a set of cow udders. Twilight yells at him to keep it in his sheath, which is a joke you'd only get if you knew about real-life horsemanship, and he rants at her about how he was hit by a random spell and grew cow udders as a side effect. If you keep talking to him, the obligatory Monty Python Holy Grail quotes begin to roll, and if you keep trying to talk to him, Apple Bloom will warn you against further conversation. When you stop and think about it, the exact same things are happening in each of these two cutscenes. You talk to Big Mac, he lifts up his raincoat in response. Apple Bloom enters, she begins disassembling baskets. Applejack joins your party after a brief conversation. It's pretty much the same things happening, but the big differences in dialogue and the small differences in graphics make all the difference in the world between it being a serious work and a technically legal parody. Having them both play side by side or one after the other might actually make it even more hilarious when you see the parody. If the game is set up this way and we decide at some point in development that it's presentable to Hasbro, then we can file the paperwork to ask for a permission, and we can show them just the polite mode. The parody elements would be quickly and easily removable, and if they say no, we can just continue the project legally by keeping the parody elements in. To give you some more idea about what I'd like the content to be like, the polite version of the game would be called Gems of Equestria. Most of the enemies would actually be monsters made entirely out of gems. A magic spell has brought them to life, turned them into golems, and made them start causing problems around Equestria. Twilight and her friends' Elements of Harmony, or replica Elements of Harmony as the case may be, have the power to break those spells and turn these golems back into piles of inanimate treasure. Since you're really just breaking spells, and the Element of Harmony magic projectiles literally do nothing if they touch living creatures or inanimate objects, I can legitimately tell Hasbro and or parents that the game is non-violent, which really jacks up the chances of it getting approved. Plus, getting your hooves on loads and loads of treasure is just plain fun no matter what your gender or age. And those gems have their practical uses. They can be used to craft jewelry or other gear which can increase your character's stats and make the game easier. The parody mode of the game would be called Hate and Tolerate, and it would show the characters being passive-aggressive, cheaters at life, oversexed, and all-around nuts. To put it in perspective, the first words in a letter from Celestia in polite mode would be, "My dearest Princess Twilight Sparkle." In parody mode, by contrast, the first words in a letter from Celestia would be, "You bumbling imbecile." Twilight, to keep her sanity, voluntarily becomes a comedic sociopath over the course of the first level. Beyond that, I think it's best that I give as few spoilers about the story as possible. I say this from experience. If you know everything there is to know about a game or a movie or a story before you experience it for yourself firsthand, there are no pleasant surprises left, and it really does take something away from the experience. That's why they call them spoilers. Besides, if, as I hope, other people join me and turn this into a collaboration, those other people are going to have terrific ideas to contribute too, so my plans are going to end up changing or being added to anyway. I will say that I have an epic and complex plot in mind, but it wouldn't be a collaboration if I weren't flexible about it. Anyhow, that's what I have to say about my vision for the future of Weather Factory Meltdown in terms of the content.